Great.
And we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Omakase show. My name is Elena Orlola, and I'm the co-host and moderator of today's talk. For those of you who are not familiar with the Omakase show, we do weekly webinars where we uncover amazing digital artists, and we also have Twitter Spaces. And hopefully, we are launching our podcast really soon. And today I have with me Lydia Smith, who are an extremely talented digital/physical artist. So yeah, Lydia, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. No, thanks for having me on. Yeah, so I got into the digital space in 2020, like a lot of people did. But before that, I was primarily a physical artist and had a background in the film industry. So I worked full-time in the British film industry. I've worked on Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Eternals, Doctor Strange, some really big blockbuster movies, so that was great. But during the pandemic, I started experimenting with digital scanning, and it was starting to be implemented in the film industry. So I thought, okay, this is something that's coming my way. We can't avoid it, so I'm going to start experimenting with it. And that's how I got into the digital space.
Wow, it's a beautiful journey and a beautiful transition from movie industry. And so once you were entering this space, who would be like the artists who inspired you? What are your some of your favorite either digital or physical artists?
So yeah, one artist I think that I've recently uncovered in the last couple of years, his name is Isumu Noguchi, and he is a sculptor and furniture designer. And he had this great show at the Barbican a few years ago, and it really resonated with me because my background isn't in fine art. It's in technical based and like figurative style of work. And I saw his extensive body of work, which shows his journey from training classically in like figurative sculpture and then merging and then abstraction and then into like furniture design and architecture. And it's funny looking back at like previous sculptors and the way that they work, the techniques haven't actually changed that much in the last like 400 years. Like we still use grid systems and like scaling up, scaling down. And I think if all of these sculptors had technology, they'd be doing the exact same thing as me and experimenting with it and seeing the next phase of where it could go. So he's a big inspiration. Yeah.
This is actually like super unique. I'm pulling up all of your artworks, and never have I ever seen this intersection of like physical sculptures and digital ones. So can you tell us a little bit about how it works actually?
Yeah, of course. Oh, you found one of my old pieces. Yeah,
I love this one. I love the figurative pieces that you have.
Yeah. So that's my previous body of work. So all of the concepts in my work are around human connection. So it's like an umbrella of human connection, and then underneath we have science, spirituality, technology, and ancient history. And these are all the subjects that I kind of research, and I realize that they're all interconnected with each other. So within my practice, I'll go into a research phase around these topics. And then when I'm sculpting, and I've got a sculpture on the go at the moment, it just naturally, like my research and like my thoughts about the things that I've been reading and discussing with people will just subconsciously flow through me into the sculpture as if I'm meditating. And I never have a preconceived idea of what the sculpture is going to look like. It's always just a natural a meditative flow until I realize like, okay, the sculpture is finished. Once the sculpture is finished in clay, which I sculpt all by hand, I scan the sculpture with my sensor, and the sensor, because it's a vintage scanner, warps and distorts the sculpture as it goes through the scanning process. And initially I thought this was a failure, but I realized that this was technology's interpretation of my work. And it just gave me a whole new meaning of thinking about AI and like, was it glitches in the technology? Was it the natural elements? And that's when I started learning about NFTs and blockchain. So the artwork actually that I've been chatting about, that I'm going to release to you guys today, is actually comes from the very first digital scan I ever did, which is called An Artifact of Ambiguous Character. So this is the first experiment I ever did, and this digital artwork looks nothing like the original piece, and that's the beauty of it. And when I get this digital piece in the computer, I can unwrap it so it reveals its own unique DNA blueprint of this physical artwork. And within this particular blueprint, there were 4 figurative entities kind of floating around within this DNA. So that's what I took. I took each of these entities and they've inspired a painting. So my whole practice goes from physical to digital, but instead of 3D printing the digital work, I use that as inspiration for another physical world artwork, and linking all the way back to human connection. To me, that mirrors how we are all connected and how we have to stay balanced between our physical and digital identities as we move forward with AI and like neurochips and metaverse and like quantum computing. Like, we are now able to completely fabricate our digital lives to any extent. And I think my moral message to everyone through my art is that you keep them in line with each other to practice like authenticity as we move forward.
It's actually like a bunch of like super powerful messages from digital identities and physical ones. And I think you already covered a little bit your creative process, but can you guide us once again, like step by step, how do you create a sculpture? How do you create a digital version of it? For me, especially, it's super exciting because honestly, I've never seen something like this before.
Yeah, it's really odd, and I don't really know any other sculptors that are doing it either. And it just comes from an amalgamation, like my traditional background and now my new like my now techie current exploration. So yeah, imagine it like a family tree. So you have the physical sculpture at the beginning, which I've sculpted based on my concepts, and then when I scan it, it creates its son or daughter, and then I unwrap that and I can see the DNA of that sculpture, and then the DNA inspires another physical sculpture, but it might inspire not only one, it might inspire like 4 or 5, depending what's in the DNA. So each sculpture is like, we've all started from one, and there is one which is the pinnacle, which is called Be More Like a Horse.
Exactly. I have it right here. I just don't know how to show it to everyone. Maybe, oh no, sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. So Be More Like a Horse is actually the first official sculpture in the family tree. But actually, I would say that An Artifact of Ambiguous Character is the true start, and the painting is attached to that. So it goes physical to digital to physical again. And then depending on what the sculpture's about, so this one that we have on screen right now, this one's titled Foreign Body. And I scanned one of my figurative works from 2019. It got warped and distorted into a digital artwork, which is titled Breeze in Space. And then I was sculpting along to the video of Breeze in Space rotating, and I did a miniature model, a miniature maquette in clay of this sculpture. And I was thinking about how technology can warp a woman's engagement with themselves. So this sculpture is called Foreign Body, and it's actually different parts of the female anatomy abstracted in different ways. And it's a commentary not only on social media and like AI and how our visual body can be manipulated, but also about our internal body and looking at contraception and hormones and all of these different things that we don't know, and there hasn't been enough research around the female body and how it works, to the point where our bodies can become foreign to us over only a short period of time. Like I'm 29. My body's changed a lot since I was 25, and it will continue to change, I reckon. Like, and I'll notice these changes probably every 3 to 5 years. So you kind of become a new version of yourself, and I think that doesn't get celebrated or discussed as much as it should. So that's what this sculpture's about. And she's the end of the conversation. So I then decided not to scan her again. I was like, this is it. This is the end. And then I went back to my research period, and then you begin the family tree again. But I'm always finding links between every single one of my artwork. So again, going back to human connection, every single piece of my artwork is interconnected with another, creating its own like universe and ecosystem. And that mirrors how I believe we're all energetically connected to each other on the planet, like animals, plants, humans, you know, we're all vibrating and sending little signals to each other, in my opinion.
Wow, I really enjoyed this theme. It's actually like indeed uncovered, not yet covered fully topic. I've been listening to podcast like last week, and it was about like human feminine health, and basically like until 1990s, all medical experiments were either performed on males, like including even mice and rats, like everything male, which also leads a lot of misleads in female treatment like nowadays. Extremely powerful theme. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's only so each of my sculptures has a different theme under all these other themes. So this one, yeah, is about female health. But I have another one which is called Internal Universe, which is all about this this meditation I did about opening my third eye. And then it took me all the way back to ancient Egypt, through this trail of research that I did around the third eye. So the third eye is also resembled by a pine cone, because a female pine cone, used to be hung in people's windows, and before it rained, it would used to close all of its spores to protect its seeds. So people would look at these pine cones and say, it's going to rain soon. And that's how they knew when it was going to rain. I then researched the shape of the pine cone, and we have a gland in the back of our brain, which is called the pineal gland, and that's shaped like a pine cone. And during this ancient yogic meditation practice of breathing in and breathing out, if you clench your pelvic floor and your stomach muscles as you breathe in and breathe out, it pumps this fluid around your body, which is called cerebral spinal fluid, and that passes over the pineal gland. And as it passes over the pineal gland, it applies pressure to the gland. And inside the gland, there are these electric crystals that are naturally occurring. So when the pressure of this fluid flows over the gland, it can create an experience as if you're on magic mushrooms naturally. So I was like, this is crazy. So when I continued doing my research on the pineal gland, which then took me all the way back to ancient Egypt. So when the ancient Egyptians were doing all of their research and science, they cut the brain in half, and the shape, the illustrational shape around the pineal gland in the brain is the Eye of Horus, and that is their symbol for intuition and the third eye.
I feel like I learned already so much. It was only 15 minutes of our webinar. Wow, this is like extremely expressive, and the amount of research you put into that, like just amazing. And in terms of your like creative process, I know you have an education. If I'm not I think I may be right that you have University of Arts or even right. So you are a professional sculptor. You have a big understanding on how either like the first sculpture technology worked. Can you tell us how it impacted your artwork nowadays? Was it in any use, and how do you use it now?
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, traditional sculpting at uni, I was taught working with a life model. So I learned all my anatomy. So, yeah, I know the human anatomy, I know how to study a life model, and I kind of technology back then, and I still use it now, is called molding and casting, which is using silicon or plaster. And now I try not to use silicon in my practice because sadly, the silicon molds will only ever end up in landfill because they're not recyclable. So I try and do plaster molds as much as possible because it's more sustainable. So yeah, like the technology I was using then was just very like hands-on, like ancient methods and techniques from the Renaissance, like the lost wax process. That's what Michelangelo and Donatello used, and we still use that process today. And technology in terms of digital sculpting, it started to kind of whisper at us while we were at university, but we were just before the time where it started being implemented as part of the curriculum. And I have a love-hate relationship with it. The best digital sculptors that I have seen that only work digitally and can create very, very high quality digital artworks that are naturalistic or like humans or whatever, from scratch, they all have a very, very strong physical training. And sadly, the sculptures that I've seen that don't have this physical world training of sculpture, their artworks digitally are not the same standard. So I think within that conversation and that observation, it's clear that as we move forward with technology, the physical world is like it's the blueprint. It's the blueprint of the digital technology, and that's why I use digital and physical in my practice. I get the spiritual and like joy that I need from physically sculpting in clay. It's like very tactile, very meditative, and I go into my flow state, and I get to explore and adventure and have fun with the digital scanning and the digital sculpting and learning all about Web3 and crypto and NFTs and everything. Yeah, so they're very much in line. I'm looking into doing some augmented reality sculptures soon. So because I'm into tech, which I think goes so beautifully with any art practice, it really means that as inspiring as the natural world is, and I'm mainly inspired by people, like as soon as a new tech thing comes out, I'm right there.
And you touched upon sustainability of your artworks, and I know, and I congratulate you a lot on this, that the Telegraph just recently made an article mentioning you and your outdoor sculptures, and they were made from eco-friendly materials. Can you tell us a little bit more about these artworks?
Yeah, of course. So that was a commission of 4 monumental sculptures for the grounds of a girls' school from where I come from. So it was a really like personal project for me, and because part of the brief was to get the students involved in creating the artwork, I used recycled and repurposed polystyrene, which is the same as we use in the film industry. To hand carve these 5 foot by 5 foot sculptures. So they're all hand carved. And then the students were able to get involved with the coating process. So I used a material called jasmonite, which is an eco-friendly resin. It's non-toxic. You don't have to wear a mask. It washes off. It's not bad for your skin. It's incredible. I'm the biggest advocate for jasmonite. So that's backed up with a matting that you put inside, and it makes it super strong. So we all got together, me and like, I think it was 20 year 9 students and then a few year 7s that came in and helped in their lunch breaks, and the whole school community got involved with this project, and it was really amazing. And then they were hand painted by myself to look like bronze. So there's 4 of them, and it's titled The Values We Share. So each sculpture is inspired by 2 of the values of the school, and then the school's mission statement. So that's one sculpture is courage and kindness, ambition and perseverance, inclusivity and integrity, and then the final sculpture is shape your future, and that's after the school's motto, which is every pupil thrives and is prepared to shape their future. And yeah, while I was on site at school making them, I did like mentorship with some of the younger students, some of the A-level students, and just trying to promote and tell them what it is like to be an artist, all the other things that you have to do to be an artist, as well as make your work. So yeah, it was a really, yeah, it's an important project for me.
Yeah, I think it's actually a powerful mission. Especially, I've been hosting webinars with artists, and one of them were telling about their fears of switching between their like full-time job to being a full-time artist, and all the struggles that they've been going through. So yeah, it's actually super powerful to empower younger generations to explore also like other career paths, except like for working as a corporate job, for example.
Yeah, like it is doable, but it's so unbelievably hard at the same time. And I was never given a path. You have to figure it out on your own. So it's really important for me to be able to kind of give some kind of structure to what these students that want to be artists need to do. There still like really isn't a structure. Like you're totally at the whim of the universe and like other people, and like the only thing you can really focus on is the fact that you're putting the work in, you're getting your artwork seen, you're cultivating different skill sets that you need to do. Like you have to learn how to be a business woman and man as well. And I know some people will hate the idea of like merging art and business together because it might take away from like the romanticism of it. But you have, for me, I see it as I have my creative kind of bundle of joy and like just pure like source energy. And once that's done, because I only want to be over here, but because I haven't got, I'm a one-woman band at the moment. Well, I've got a few team members, but not on a regular basis. So the majority of the time I do all the other stuff myself as well. So because I haven't got another team doing all of this, I have to be able to live in this space, turn it off, and then go over into this space. And over here I have marketing, reputation, and finances. So every single project I do after it's created, every single exhibition, I kind of can track like what it's doing and where I got to afterwards. So just putting those kind of logical checkpoints in place so you can see your progress, because it's really hard to look back, because being an artist can be really slow and you need a lot of patience.
For sure. Yeah. And actually, as you've been talking, you have a lot of things to manage, like social media presence, event presence. So you're kind of your own like marketing manager, financial advisor, and like everything all together. And you also create art. Yeah. So it's a lot of things to do with at the same time.
To do. And it's something that I'm really passionate about also advocating artists get a bad rep as if we're like unemployable, and I'm like, artists are the most employable people you will ever meet, because more often than not they're also working 1 or 2 jobs on the side, so they have a whole other career in their pocket. And if they're a full-time artist, then they know how to do business. So anybody that's listening that doesn't like, I just want to change the narrative around like airy fairy artists. Yeah, we're definitely not airy fairy. So,
So you know what? This has never ever happened before in our show, but Lydia also made an amazing surprise for our listeners. And I will share my screen. I already posted everywhere, so you can find this link on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so, Lydia, can you tell us a little bit more about the artwork and
yeah. So like I any new joiners, so this I'm offering to you guys, the community here that are listening in, just while the live stream is going on, 25% off, and then the artwork will be available for 24 hours after the stream has ended, but after that, like it's no longer available. So I hope you enjoy it. Yeah, it's only 12 editions. I actually have the original here. So this is called Entity 0.01, and this is one of the blueprint figures that I was talking about earlier, where from my very first ever digital sculpture called An Artifact of Ambiguous Character, it produced in its DNA 4 individual figurative entities. This is the second. So this is why it's called Entity 0.1. And the first is a unique. So this one I've decided to release as an edition of 12 so that more of you can have it. And also because 12, as you can read in the description on the link, it's all about how we all have our different personas and personalities inside ourselves, and how we have to choose between them, like when to bring them out, when to like keep them pushed down, but always hopefully choosing the ones that bring the most like love and light to yourself and to other people. So that's what that works.
Beautiful. And also I saw this option on your website, and I'm super curious. You offer in a way like either physical or digital certificate of authenticity, right?
Yes. So because I'm in the Web3 space, and I'm also in the traditional space, part of my practice is also to educate and like bridge these 2 worlds together. So I never want to alienate. I think this is like with whatever topic, whether it's political, technology, like spiritual, anything like that, as soon as you only like offer one thing or only stick to one track, you close off a load of people that you could have educated or like brought into your sphere. So my artwork is available as digital contracts on the blockchain. So you have your digital authenticity and you can have that in your wallet, and it's like super safe and secure. Or if you're a traditional art buyer, you can have it as a printout certificate of authenticity. And at any time that you feel comfortable and you want to then transfer it into a digital asset, you can. Your physical painting that you'll get sent to you in the post, or you can collect from the studio, will always be physical, and it will be attached and linked by the edition number to the digital piece. And the reason why I got into doing blockchain art is because of the protection it gives artists, the protection it gives the collector, and the resale rights and like the security of ownership. So yeah, someone might take a screenshot of your NFT, but that's the same as buying a postcard of the Mona Lisa. So you are the one that has the digital ownership. You are the one with the certificate in your drawer. However, having a digital ownership means you're not going to lose that certificate in your drawer. And as part of art history, having that certificate verifies the artwork. So it just protects everyone. And it also means if and when you resell the work, because of blockchain technology, I will get a percentage of those resale rights. And I'm very passionate about that. I was at a talk at Sotheby's, and there was an artist being interviewed, and just between the lines, she kind of mentioned how she didn't see much from the sale. And she's a very successful artist. Like, she's got her work in the V&A. She was selling for 1.2 million at Sotheby's. But there was just this kind of twang of, oh, I don't really see much from this. And that's because the collector and Sotheby's would have got the majority of this of the revenue from that sale, and not the artist. So blockchain technology enables that not to be an issue. Like, if you sell entity at Sotheby's in 10 years' time for 1.2 million, I will get a percentage of that sale, and I think that's fair. It gives artists sustainability throughout their career, which is really hard to come by as an artist. So to be able to give that reassurance and sustainability to an artist, knowing that, hey, maybe if a collector sells my work in a couple of years' time, I'm going to get a little bit of revenue for that. I think as a collector that believes in me and my work, you should be happy to do that. So that's why I offer both options.
I love it. Actually, like, ever since we have this intersection of blockchain, art, and technology, I think the main argument for me personally was the idea of the secondary market and the importance of artistic royalties, for sure. Because in traditional art world, it doesn't work this way. Every secondary purchase just doesn't give artists any royalties for the artwork the artist created, which is extremely unfair. Yeah, and thank you for mentioning and covering this. And actually also a nice, amazing way to use it with a physical artwork as a digital certificate of ownership. And so you've been talking a little bit, and I'm wondering, you're based in London. Can you tell us a little bit more on how London influences your creative work? Does it have any inspiration behind it, like this city and this location?
So yeah, what's interesting about this question is, strangely enough, in terms of like the city itself, like, I find it just quite inspiring to walk around. One, because of the architecture, but also I am such a people watcher, and as I've said, like, human connection and like people are my inspiration, like throughout all the different phases of my artwork. So just being able to, I walk everywhere in London, like, unless I'm in a rush or I'm late, like, I do not get the tube, because you get to see all these amazing things, like the crazy people, the fun people, like the tickets, the architecture, everything. And then there are also so many gallery openings all the time. So if you need to go and get a little bit of inspiration, you can literally, my studio is based in Trafalgar Square, so I can literally just jump out and go and see anything at any time. It's incredible. Also, like, that's the magic side of it, and it is really great that it's so accessible, but it's also becoming extremely inaccessible, because of the rising house and like business rates. Artists are being kicked out of their studios. The studios are being turned into hotels or apartment buildings. So the artists that used to be kind of like in the center or semi in the center are now being pushed to the outskirts. And from my own experience of having a studio in Hackney Wick, which was like East London, then moving to Limehouse, which was also East London, I got no studio visits. And studio visits are integral to artist success because we need to be seen, and we can't always be seen. It costs a lot to put on an exhibition. Like, I produce my own shows because I'm currently not represented by a gallery, and it's a lot of investment and a lot of work to put on these shows with actually like no potential return. So if you aren't able to put on your own shows, you're really relying on studio visits so people can come in and see you. But nobody came when I was outside of Central. Even when I was in Bank, which is much more central, it's on the Central line, it was still a barrier for studio visits because people from West London and Mayfair tend to not get on a tube to come and see you. So not only are we facing a massive, massive issue with studios not existing in Central London, it's just always been an issue to get people to your studio. So I realised quite early on that I had to position myself geographically and accessibility close to these people that I needed to have meeting with. And that is pretty impossible. So I feel very fortunate to have the current studio that I'm in. So yeah, as inspirational as London is, it is sadly not becoming as accessible, which hopefully, I don't know how we're going to change it, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, for sure. But you have a lovely vacation. And I also had one studio visit of my friend's like studio at Hackney, and I also felt like Hackney had this history of being a little bit unsafe back at the times, a little bit like dirty, but at this time, at the same time, the amount of like the amount of money you pay for the rental there make it super accessible for the artists. So I would say Hackney is also like a beautiful creative hub right now. It has a lot of artists discovered with graffiti, street art. It's beautiful. But yeah, I completely agree on all the struggles you've been going through. And yeah, your vacation is actually amazing. It's just beautiful.
But even that being said, like Hackney and Hackney Wick, the rent prices have gone up there too now. It's just expanding and expanding. Like it's an amazing creative hub, but like creatives are being pushed out or like hanging on for dear life. So it's definitely something that people need to be aware of. And like I'm thinking of ideas of how to try and help change it.
Yeah, for sure. I want to move to like final thoughts of our webinar, and can you please share your tips for the emerging artists that are trying to join the Web3 space, or in general, like emerging artists? I know you created like a really beautifully written text for my newsletter where you shared your tips and your perspective, and it was like a bunch of beautiful thoughts, and I think it would be super nice if you can cover them also here.
Yeah, of course. So advice, I think, the question was about motivation, wasn't it? But I'll start with advice first. So, and Web3. So research, and like, for me, it happened quite instinctually and quite naturally. Just the sources that I was listening to, it started to kind of come into my sphere, and I decided to lean into it, instead of being like, I don't know what that is. Like, yes, because I heard it from people that I respected in the art industry. I first heard about it on Talk Art, which is hosted by Russell Tovey and Robert Diamond. So I was like, okay, if these guys are talking about it, it must be something. So I just researched, and I researched for about a year. It's a whole different language, Web3. But the way I kind of describe it to people, your wallet is like Monzo. So it's just another thing that holds cash, and you can transfer it into different currencies. Like if I was like on Monzo and going to transfer it into like euros or whatever, I could do that. It's the same thing in my MetaMask wallet or my Coinbase wallet. These are different like bank providers. So I can change my my British pounds into Ethereum, into Pepe, into whatever, and then that's when it gets into kind of like stocks and shares territory. And again, this is not financial advice, but like never, like just the way I do it is I'm always prepared to lose everything that I've put in. So that's crypto and like crypto language. But then like Web3 and NFTs is associated with that because this is how you buy NFTs, and they're stored in your wallet. And then you can display them on your screens at home and stuff like that. And Web3 is kind of based in history of the internet. So we're currently in Web 2, which is being able to like socially engage with each other over the internet. And Web 1 is when you could just read things. So Web 1 was initially only in kind of like hospitals and like big corporate firms and banks, so that people could read reports. So they would upload it and then it would be on the database for people to read. Web 2 is when people would be able to comment on these reports. And now Web 3 is where we're actually allowed to all create the reports together, engage in the reports, and utilize this new amazing technology called the blockchain, which stores all the reports. So that's Web 3. But what I would say for artists is make sure it just kind of naturally use it as inspiration, and make sure that it naturally kind of folds into your practice. Like, I've seen so many examples of people just taking pictures of their physical work and selling it as NFTs, but not having the physical work attached to it. And to me, that doesn't have any value. So I think make it make sense. And if it doesn't make sense for you, don't do it. Like, it's got to be instinctive, it's got to make sense. Like, don't try and make it make sense because you're like, oh, I'm going to make some money off NFTs. Like, as an artist, I don't believe you should ever make anything because you want to make money. You make things because you're compelled to, and you have a message that you want to share, and it's about the wider society, and you're commenting on that. That's how I view it. I never make anything as if I'm going to sell it. I do sell things, which is great. And I need to sell things to support my life and my existence. But I never do it with the intention of that being my primary goal. So that was a lot of advice there. Yeah, and then the motivation. This is an interesting question, and it's something that I struggle with. My friends and my colleagues would say I'm extremely motivated, but I would actually disagree and just say I'm extremely dedicated. I am not motivated. So, like this morning, I was not motivated, but I got up anyway, went to the gym, got the train, came to work, did my thing, and now I'm here talking to you. And that's because I'm dedicated, I'm determined, and I have a vision of what I want to create. So find like your vision, what you want to say, what you want to do, who you are, what you want to bring to other people, and then cultivate like this deep faith and like unwavering determination to make it happen. And then if you're like lacking on skills in certain areas, you can upskill. Like, you won't believe it from the way that I've been talking today, but I never really used to talk to anyone. I was very, very, very shy as a teenager. I got bullied a lot. I was, still even very shy at university. The thing that brought me out of my comfort zone was joining a sport. And like every Wednesday we go out on sports night out and we dress up in fancy dress and get drunk. And that's what brought this other layer of confidence out in me. And then being in uncomfortable situations. Galleries are a great place to network. Networking is key, and it's really, really awkward to begin with, but you've just got to go in. I remember one time I went into this exhibition. It was a friend of mine, so I knew that I had someone to talk to, but I didn't know anybody else there. And I wore this bright blue coat, and I was like, I've got to stand out. And I didn't feel comfortable wearing it. I love this coat, but I was a bit nervous. And I was like, you're fine. You're going to an art exhibition. Wear the blue coat. And my friend's paintings also had to have quite a lot of blue in them. So I got quite a lot of compliments from people in the room saying that I matched the paintings. So that actually sparked conversation. And then I think I ended up talking to this woman who was wearing bright orange, and she matched one of the paintings. And we just started getting on until eventually I said, oh, so what is it that you do? How do you know the artist? And they ended up working for quite a big cultural magazine. And then they ended up coming to the studio. So it's little things like that you never know when it's going to happen and what's going to happen. And the silliest thing, like wearing a blue coat, that matches a painting gets you through the door to an interview with this magazine. You've just got to show up every day. Apart from when you're sick and burnt out. That would be my advice. Yeah.
It's beautiful. As you've been talking, I feel like you have this like extremely powerful skill of communicating. I think you can be either a teacher or someone. You explained Web3 like in 2 minutes. It was super clear. I think it would be super clear for newcomers. And networking, yeah, networking is also like super tough. What's worked for me is basically whenever I want to talk to someone, I'm trying to like find out what I see the person. I'm like, what I like about the person, either the appearance, either like the clothing, and I'm like starting conversation like this, like already on a positive note, and it's a beautiful story that you shared. Yeah, with the book out. Wow. And so this would be like the final question. Can you tell us what is coming up next for you? What are like the next projects you're working on? What should we stay tuned on?
So I have an exhibition opening in South Kensington over Kensington and Chelsea Art Weeks, which is in June. So that's from the 18th to the 2nd of July. So I'll be posting about that on my Instagram, on my Twitter. So like, yeah, please come along and see the show. I'm going to be there at different days throughout the 2 weeks that it's on. So that's a solo show of my sculptural works. I have some very, very exciting potential projects coming up with augmented reality, which I'm just waiting for the go ahead on, which is very exciting. And a potential residency, again, waiting, fingers crossed, potentially in Saudi, which I'm very, very excited about. But again, we're waiting to hear. Being an artist, there's a lot of waiting. And then I'm just making work in the studio as well for another show in September. So it's really, really busy. And I think I might be on a film as well soon. So yeah, a lot.
Wow,
a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, the residency, is it like the residency for digital artists or traditional ones?
Digital. So it's actually called Digital Art Futures, and it's a new residency that's in Saudi, and it's for a year. So you learn all about emerging technologies in the first 3 months, and then you use these emerging technologies alongside your studio practice to create an end of year show. So that's something else that I'm really looking into because I want to start making public augmented reality sculptures for people to engage with.
Wow, it's actually beautiful because I've been so when CryptoPunks announced their digital like artist residency within Chanel, I was like super happy about digital art worlds implementing art worlds practice, and I never ever heard before about like art residency for digital artists. So yeah, it sounds amazing, and I hope you will be there and you'll enjoy your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And yeah, just like, I don't know who's like done it yet, but I'll just put this up here one more time. So the link will stay live for the next 24 hours, but the gift of the 25% off will come off in the next as soon as the webinar ends. So if you want to get this piece, I would get it now.
I love it. I love this piece. Beautiful. I can actually see it framed on my wall.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me on. And
thank you so much.
Yeah, the best place to find me is on Twitter and Instagram, which is Twitter is Lydia Smith Arts and Instagram is Lydia Smith Artist. And then my website is www.lydiasmith.gallery. So.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Lydia. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.